Hi, I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy. And today we're going to be talking about the Trump gas attack as well as.
Well, Trudeau apparently keeps losing and losing, so we'll see if he'll stay much longer in our old hometown of Canada.
And who did the Teamsters endorse? Somebody, Trump, or nobody?
And Am I Racist keeps doing amazing numbers, even though nobody wants to review it and nobody wants to admit that it's actually doing as well as it is.
If you haven't liked and subscribed, please do that now. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so let's get into the Trump gas attack. This happened on September 12th in Tucson, Arizona. There were about 20 people injured in the attack, and most of these people were sitting right behind Trump on the right-hand side. It was primarily Latinos for Trump that were in this group that were injured. They realized it may have been a gas attack from the rally because they all started showing up at the hospital and the doctors put two and two together. There's currently an investigation going on by the Trump administration.
And I mean, this is just it's more proof that people, we know who wants to because if they keep portraying like Trump supporters and Trump himself as this dangerous figure and these dangerous figures, then we're going to keep seeing, bad things happening to not just him, but now his supporters as well.
Well, Matt Gaetz came out today and said there's like 5 assassination groups in the United States currently hunting for Trump. 3 of these are foreign entities, whether they're from Ukraine, China, or Russia. I don't know, but this was a shocking statement from Matt Gaetz today.
Yeah, and I mean, it keeps being pretty obvious that that's what they're trying to do. And why? Because maybe Trump can bring about some change, and it is change that people are looking for, and therefore it is an actual threat to, the establishment. Let's put it that way.
Well, I think they're trying to put the fear in the heart of Trump supporters so they stop going to these rallies because they would love to see empty rallies, and that's just not happening. These things are growing in mass and momentum. He went to New York State the other day, and 60,000 people requested tickets. People slept 2 days overnight in order to get in. So he's just gaining grassroots support, and I think they don't know how to stop it.
And there's also a bunch of different stories that keep coming up. Like, for example, yesterday there was an apparent, they found some explosive devices at another rally he had in New Jersey, and then it turned out that it wasn't true. And all of these conflicting stories, I think, might be on purpose to make people say, like, oh, well, that one wasn't true. This one probably isn't true either. It just creates a bunch of confusion.
Well, it's this get Trump narrative, and I think they're trying to normalize people assassinating Trump, but hoping people are going to just start coming out of the woodwork, thinking if we can get Hitler, we can change the future, which this is just absolutely insane. But let's get on to the next thing, the Teamsters, which is I have a personal connection with the Teamsters because I used to be part of the union in Vancouver, Canada.
Yeah, we both were.
Yeah.
Within the film industry, when we were working in the film industry, we were working within Teamsters. So this is actually a bit more, as you say, personal.
Well, Teamsters 155, good to see y'all. Anyway, I'm glad to hear what's happening in the States anyway. I know the head of the Teamsters union out of New York tended to have gone woke over the last few years, and they kept endorsing not only Democratic candidate, but Democratic woke policies. And I know the union members themselves are tend to support Trump and are really conservative in nature. So why don't you continue on with this?
Yeah, and I mean, we see, because of the nature of unions and how unions, were formed and what unions were for, and it is a slightly more socialistic, communistic way of doing things, but unions are one of the ideals of the left usually. So the left really was pandering to them, at least towards the leaders. But I mean, the people that work in unions are actually working class people, blue collar people who just want to do their jobs. And I mean, we know that is essentially the normal people are the base of Trump.
Okay, so what actually happened in the story was they decided not to announce they endorsed nobody, but the union members themselves usually take a vote, and that dictates who they're supposed to endorse. Before, when it was Trump and Biden versus, they had a vote, and the Teamsters actually voted 44% for Biden and 36% for Trump. So at that point, I think they were going to go ahead with an endorsement. It just wasn't quite close enough yet. But when the Democrats did the old switcheroo and they put Kamala Harris in there, they did another vote, and the vote changed dramatically. 34% were pro-Harris to support, and 59% were pro-Trump. Then they didn't like that because the union heads wanted to endorse Harris, so they did another poll, and that poll came out 31% for Harris and 58% for Trump. And so rather than endorse Trump, they decided to say we're not endorsing anybody. But the numbers were leaked on these internal votes, showing why they couldn't endorse the Democratic Party. The heads of the union kind of wanted an excuse to say, well, we can't go against our union members. I think the union members may be a little bit upset the union won't outwardly endorse Trump, even though they have a majority.
Yeah, and I mean, we see here in this tweet that even they themselves put out, we see those numbers and we see what most people have been knowing and talking about and saying for the past, I guess, 6 years, where it is no matter what kind of organization you're in, always the working people are the ones that are more populist center right, and then all the elites are of course going to vote for those that give them the most benefits, which has completely turned around from the way it used to be, but which is now the Democrats.
Okay, this is just showing what's kind of going on right now. Since they switched Biden and Harris, there was that initial sugar rush for Kamala Harris, but now that that's worn off, her numbers are dipping, and they're dipping with blue collar workers in the Rust Belt. This was specifically Joe Biden's strength. They loved him in that area, and without that, specifically Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, there's no way she's going to win. And as goes one of those states, goes all of them. So I think in the next week you're going to see Kamala Harris's poll numbers dive off a cliff, but I'll keep an eye out for it.
Well, continue to dive off a cliff, essentially, which, I mean, is to be expected. And, well, now going back to our homeland, now that we're also talking about the Teamsters, well, it seems that Trudeau is not doing so well because he has lost yet another riding in special elections. He lost Toronto recently, and now he's losing one in Montreal, which he's already a pretty unpopular. I mean, everybody, I think, by now has noticed in Canada the decay and the decline that has happened from these past almost 15, it feels like 15 years of Trudeau. And there's only signals that people are kind of moving away from him being the image of the Liberals, and this is completely weakening the whole Liberal Party. We all know, and because of polls and just general obviousness, that the Conservatives are going to take it whenever he decides to call for elections. But does this mean that he'll try to call for elections sooner or even slower?
Well, what happened was Jagmeet Singh broke his coalition with Trudeau, which means he was voting with everything Trudeau wanted, which kind of made a uniparty. Now that Jagmeet Singh has called off that coalition, Pierre Poilievre has put him in quite the hot seat, calling for a snap election and a vote of non-confidence. Only thing was, Jagmeet Singh, even though he says he's not in a coalition no more, is once again voting with Trudeau. So I really hope Poilievre keeps trying to have a vote of non-confidence, making Jagmeet Singh constantly have to vote with Trudeau, showing they really do have a coalition, and I think ultimately weakening both parties.
And I mean, in this election, even the person that was going to be voted for, which is hold on.
Okay, well, Pierre Poilievre's numbers are looking extremely good. He's looking to have a super majority because the NDP's numbers and the Liberals' numbers have both fallen off a cliff. So if he does get a super majority, this is what Trudeau was ultimately looking for the entire time he was in power. But let's go back to what you were saying.
Well,
Sorry, Matt.
Well,
I've messed up the sound.
well, I mean, essentially what...
Continue to go.
No, I forgot again. Essentially what happened is that before, and what happens a lot in Canada, is that MPs, members of parliament that are trying to get reelected will usually try to put, their party leader's name up front and center. But this time, this MP that was looking for reelection did not even want to associate with Trudeau and had nothing connecting her really to Trudeau or the Liberals, because I think more and more people are realizing how embarrassing, just like right now, how embarrassing it is to be connected to Trudeau. And I'm guessing all of them want to change their leader as soon as possible. And only Trudeau can call for special elections unless somebody finally decides to do that vote and do the vote of no confidence on him.
Okay, so let's go into I Am a Racist. This is a movie, not what I am, but this is a movie about DEI grifters. And Joe Rogan recently had Matt Walsh on his podcast, and they talked about it. Joe Rogan said this was a laugh out loud funny movie, which is a great endorsement because critics just aren't being allowed to review this because of the social pressures that are being put on them. And so the only publicity they're really getting is political publicity trying to scorn this movie.
And I'm a Racist is a movie where, he talks about and goes completely against the DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion racket that has been taking a hold of essentially all of businesses, all enterprise in the United States, schools, universities, everything has been completely focused on DEI, which essentially just tells people that doesn't matter what merits you've done, what accomplishments you've reached, we're now going to be focusing on bringing up people that are completely incompetent only based on what they look like, which is not a good policy to have. And I think it is important that, for example, he got interviews with some of the biggest DEI grifters, and he's completely exposed them now. A lot of them now canceling their Twitter accounts and canceling book tours and things that they had going on. Now they've been exposed, and I think this is why they're so scared of reviewing the movie, because if they ever agree with what he's saying, well, then they'll also be probably canceled, or that's what they think. I do think it's changing now.
What I was going to say was, Nat has a video coming out in a couple days for our Spanish viewers. If you do speak Spanish, it will be in Spanish, but it's talking about DEI, which really hasn't hit Mexico the same way it had hit Canada and the United States. It's just starting out, so it's I think very important for the subject matter to have basic cultural awareness of what's going to be going on with it.
Yeah, and the fact that some people have now actually decided to review the damn movie, and even though it is on Rotten Tomatoes and it didn't have reviews for the longest time, well, now we see that finally we have at least 10 reviewers, 10 people actual reviewers that are certified that have reviewed it, and it has a 98% score. Yes, it could be all supporters of Matt Walsh, but I think in general, all of the zeitgeist and all of the temperature of the DEI, the lefty stuff that used to be just injected into people's daily lives, people are waking up and realizing, hey, maybe this was not a good idea, and they're taking steps to change it. So I think, as opposed to What is a Woman, which is another Matt Walsh documentary, mockumentary, whatever you want to call it, this one is coming at a time where, number one, it was actually released in theaters instead of only on streaming on the Daily Wire. And number two, people are way more open-minded to finally admit that, well, maybe all of these policies that my office, my university, my school is making me follow are not as equal and are not as diverse and are not as useful as they've been telling me they are.
Yeah, so I guess we'll wrap things up. But before we do, I'll give you a little look behind the curtains. So today we're dealing with a lot of things. We had one mic in front of us that was positioned here for a long time. Now you see there's two. The only problem is one has a different pickup pattern than the other one. So I'm constantly having to press mute here, which that's why you see me getting angrier there. And then we're trying to switch on the camera switcher here, as well as control a bunch of things within here. And this is
streaming software.
And this is all temporary equipment that we're kind of in the process of moving to a different place in Mexico in a few months. So you're going to see a huge increase in our quality in a few months. Yeah. But today was definitely a challenge. But you're going to constantly see our sound and our video setup changed slightly because we're trying to learn to use the equipment in different things. We had to delete yesterday's video because we made a bunch of mistakes, not just on the story, because the story ended up becoming fake news.
Yeah, was that?
It was the bombing story about the bomb attempt at the Trump rally, but we had also messed up the audio and the video feed. So I guess before we go.
Well, I mean, the audio is probably out of sync in this one. You have me muted now. No. The audio is also probably out of sync in this one. We're still figuring things out, but like our main thing is to show people that it's okay if you make mistakes. It's okay if you're just learning, but having a voice, if that's important to you, I think is the number one thing. And eventually, we do want to start teaching people, and talking about how we do things.
Yeah, basically we've left up all of our mistakes, which there's tons of mistakes. Rather than take bad videos down, we decided to leave them up. Hopefully this encourages other people to just work through it and show others the struggles that you go through in order to learn things like this. We never thought we were going to be doing a bunch of videos on politics until the Canadian government kind of overstepped their bounds.
Yeah, and we're still learning, and I think it's good to...
Okay, and that's it for today.
We hope you have a lovely rest of your day, and we'll see you soon. And we have to figure out how to do this part too.
Adios.